All right, Steve says, Boom fans. One of the subjects that I've been wanting to really delve into, and I haven't had the time because of the format limitations on Instagram, is I wanted to talk more about the period where I went from being completely out of my depth, an unknown, a complete newbie, to finding my place, finding good reference material, and beginning to put the pieces together. It was a magical time. I can't tell you. If I could go back there right now, I would. It's such a great time for me. So, more specifically, what era am I talking about? I'm talking about 1985. By 1985, I had about a year and a half of collecting under my belt. Nothing much going on. I had extremely limited funds. I was sort of, struggling with what direction my hobby was going. In some ways, I was rather too focused. I was a Hulk fanatic, and that was all I was interested in. When it came to back issues, all I wanted was the Hulk. I was buying some sporadic new issues, and of course, the Secret Wars had already come out, and I had diversified my modern reading. I was now reading 6 or 7 Marvel titles per month. However, I was lacking in knowledge. I still didn't know who, what, why, and when. I didn't know the title spreads, what issue numbers were. I was still struggling with the concepts of Silver Age and Bronze and Gold, and publishers. I needed help. I needed information. It kept me out of conversations. I would go down to my comic shop and I would hear these haughty-taughty collectors, oh yes, I've been collecting for 20 years, la la la. And I'd be like, wow, these guys are 20 years, and they were talking about stuff that could only dream of. So, it gets to a point where I searched out knowledgeable people at school. I let it be known I wanted to find out who at my school read comics and who could help me. And one such individual, his name was Nick Kosh. He was a great kid. He introduced me to this book, The Overstreet Price Guide to Comic Books, 1985. This is signature in my education. In this book, I was able to work out how many Marvel titles there were. I also worked out that there was 3 distinct periods of Marvel, which blew me away at the time. I was like, oh my God, 3 periods? Just in case you don't know what the 3 periods are, you have Timely, the Golden Age, Timely era, which transitioned into Marvel Comics. Then you have Marvel being published under Atlas Comics. And then you have Marvel of the Silver Age, beginning with Fantastic Four #1. And I was utterly confused at the time. I was like, well, it's all Marvel. So I remember I created my first want list, and stupidly, I wrote down all the Golden Age and all the Atlas titles, thinking they were all part of the modern day Marvel Universe. It was very fortunate that very early on I realized I didn't have to collect all those titles, because that's impossible. All those Captain Americas and Marvel Comics and Human Torches, and then don't even think about all the Atlas titles. There's millions of those titles. However, there's a transitional period where you have Atlas Comics, which is just pure, science fiction and horror, and then they begin to transition over to superheroes. That was very confusing to me at the time. Like from Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense, Journey into Mystery. I was like, wait, what issue number is really Marvel? What's not? Agonizing. This book put me on the path. I got a nice pad. I know this is going to be incredible to you now. Remember, no computers. Okay, no, forget about internet. I had a pad and a pen, and I meticulously went through the guide, page by page, making a notation of every single Marvel title from 1961 on. And I just wrote them all down. It took me about maybe 2 weeks of constant writing, going backwards and forwards, fixing things. And once I had it in an alphabetical version, and I had it all listed out and looked in front of me, I then rewrote it in chronological order. The amount of time that I had as a youngster, incredible. And the focus, hour after hour, just looking at this book, opening it up and writing down the titles. But then I had this title list, and I was able to see what the issues were. So I discovered that there was no Hulk issue 7. It was cancelled at issue 6, and then it starts at 102. And then I found out that there was this little in-between gap of Tales to Astonish numbers, where there has the Hulk in it. Invaluable information from here. Okay, so I have an idea of the titles. I know their eras. I know what crossbreeds they are. The other significant books at the time, and I was very fortunate. In 1985, Marvel unleashed like a reference library. It was incredible, like 3 incredible publications that helped me tremendously and allowed me to join in these conversations. I wasn't just standing there going, oh, I don't know. I was able to actually, say things and go, oh, okay, yeah, blah, 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 blah. So, the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. This is, of course, a trade paperback, but it basically reprints the deluxe series that came out in 1985. It is basically the finest version of the handbook that was ever published. Okay? It is a wonder. It's a treasure trove that allowed me to go through character by character, reading their strengths and powers, and more importantly, telling me their first appearances. Every character, I found out where their first appearance was, and I began to memorize them. It was tremendous. Also gave me an incredible admiration for the people who were writing this stuff. To me, they were like godlike beings. I mean, did anyone have collections that big that engrossed this entire universe? Of course, there were people there that, that time that did. But not me. I was still scratching around with maybe, by 1985, maybe I had 300, 400 books. And I had nothing from the Silver Age. So, there's my little character listings. I'm beginning to learn about the characters. Then they had this other publication that came out. This was incredible. Of course, this is a trade paperback copy of it. It was called Marvel Saga. Marvel Saga started off, and it was basically telling the history of the Marvel Universe in chronological order. So my young mind was like, well, how does that work? I had no idea about the way stories could be told and how some stories could have little flashbacks in them which take place before Fantastic Four #1. And they were part of the Marvel Universe. They were canon. This, Marvel Saga, puts those various appearances, in chronological order. Certain panels from modern books. So I was able to go, oh, okay. So I began to get a gist of the continuity, the way the Marvel Universe flowed, which characters were there, which characters came out of the Second World War. My knowledge was growing. And then, the real kicker. This is my bound volume, by the way, of the 1980s official Marvel Index, okay, which began with The Amazing Spider-Man, okay? This book, which was basically written by a guy called George Olszewski, who at the time had a complete Marvel set, including Timely's. I think at the time he was the only person who had that. Him and his team had got together and did an index, issue by issue. And just a quick reading of the index allowed me to realize that characters just didn't appear 1 month after 1 month after 1 month. Sometimes a character would be in an issue, but it wouldn't actually be in the contemporary time period of the issue that's being done. Sometimes it'd be the whole issue would be a flashback sequence. A flashback sequence is something that happened 10 or even 20 years before. Important knowledge, important events expanded upon. And the terminology used in this, chronology and continuity and flashback, I became aware of it. I was like, wow, okay, there's a flashback. The 1980s indexes, they're a little wordy, I will admit. However, I did purchase all of them. Of course, The Amazing Spider-Man, it's just a tremendous amount of work, okay? Everyone thinks about computers and stuff like that. But back in the day, that's how you got your information, from reading stuff like that. So, by the time 1985 was over, when we were moving into 1986, my knowledge had increased 1,000-fold. I had my list. I knew what titles I was going for. I knew what titles were canon. So I knew that there were books like 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's not Marvel canon. Marvel's version of The Wizard of Oz. That's not canon. Okay? I also found out about all the magazines, and I was working on my list. Secondly, the official handbook of the Marvel Universe was coming out issue after issue. I was learning more and more, not only about the characters, about artifacts and devices, lands and planets and universes. It was just, I was like a sponge sucking this information in. And that's when I was gripped by the desire, the need to get a complete Marvel set. I know, talk about being bold. There I was with hardly 2 shekels to rub together. And there I was making this bold plan that I was going to get a complete Marvel set. At the time, you could probably pick up a Fantastic Four #1 in nice shape for probably $300. A nice one. We wish now, right? So anyway, I had my plans. I moved into 1986 with this wealth of knowledge, but 1985 goes down for me as the breakout year, the year that the knowledge that I was looking for came to me through these publications. And I just wanted to explain that to this modern audience. I know some of you you're just as old as me, maybe even older. Older than me, are you kidding? But there's some of you out there who are quite young and have never even seen the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. Maybe you went online. Maybe you just Googled character. They have the Marvel Wiki now, and, you can just go online. Within seconds, you can Google something. But back here in 1985, piecing the information together bit by bit, something special about it. It was something glorious. And I still hold very dear to my heart the 20-issue run of the Deluxe series, the 25-issue run of the Marvel Saga. Of course, I bought every single Marvel Index series there was. Index 2, Amazing Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Marvel Team Up, Avengers and X-Men. Boom, all of them. I'll go in, at another time, I'll go in and tell you what happened to my index craziness and my plans for my own index. That's for another time. But let's bring this little memory to an end. 1985, a great year for me, breakout year, very important. And I just wish, in some ways I could do it all again. Boom!